Hello, everyone. So, welcome to this month's webinar with Dr. Shayne Morris. It's May. Today will be focused around Alimentum Labs and protocoling, how we've been using these in people's practice. And as a representative, I've probably talked to a lot of you about utilizing these protocols. And I think most of you are very excited about the results that you've been getting from these so far. Before we get started, I'll go through a little bit of housekeeping because we have been working on some exciting things since the last time we have talked. Let me share my screen with you. So first things first is we've been working on content. So what we've done is we've went in and created social media accounts that we'll be working on going forward. You won't see too many posts in there right now because we did just create it, but we will have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube for videos and content and stuff like that. So throughout the end of this week here and the upcoming months, we're going to start sending you guys the links to these social media so you guys can join those and be able to keep updated with us as we go through our process of releasing these new products, these new protocols, all this groundbreaking stuff. And I know a lot of you are already in this too. We have a Google Drive. Most of the stuff that we've so far created are in here. The price sheets, we have a replacement guide for those of you who are using the old systemic formulas biocell lines. We have the replacements in here as well so that you can know which ones are, the correlative ones that you can use in replacement of. So you can go back and forth on that. And then we do have a mini protocol guide as well that is a graph that has to do with being able to throw down a really quick protocol for somebody who has like a complication of some sort. It just is a really quick reference guide to say, hey, here's this health condition that they're dealing with. And then you'll go down that line and you'll be able to tell which products to use for that. So that's in that drive. Shayne will go through more of this kind of stuff a lot deeper as well. I mean, the man formulated it, so he knows how to throw these together. So he'll give you guys the really deep dive on that. And then I did want to let you know too, for being here for this webinar, you'll actually be able to utilize a buy 5, get 1 free discount on the Alimentum products. And so to do that, you can reach out to your representative. If I'm your rep, you can call me. I have an assistant that you can reach out to, or the customer service team can take these orders for you too. And that's the 1-800 number. It's 1-800-445-4647. And then just hit extension 1 and that'll go to the customer service team so you guys can take this order. Just mention the code here. The May Alimentum will be the code. And so up on there is a chat and a Q&A in here too. So Shayne is going to be able to see what you guys are saying in the chat. So don't be scared to throw on some questions down there to let him know, because he'll be able to look at that and give you guys updates on the questions that you're asking. And if we don't get to your question, we will answer them. Like, we're going to get to every single question that's here and we'll send it to you later as we get to them, because we'll be able to get through them pretty quickly and get them back to you for that. But I'm going to turn it over to Shayne now so that he can give you guys the exciting news and the education for protocoling here.
So welcome, everybody. I'm super excited again to review some of the things that we're doing. In fact, I believe that we're going to be doing a lot of these types of webinars. We'll try to keep them shorter, pile in what we need to, and then just know that we will continue to level up every time so that we can help you generate the understanding you need, the clinical implementation styles you need, so that we can address from the clinician's perspective how to use these products and what makes them different from others. And I do have a bunch of questions that we asked you guys to submit early. What I'm going to do, instead of going through each one individually, what I'll end up doing is lumping some of these together, which means at the end of this, if you didn't get a very specific answer, then please reach out, because a lot of these are going to be a generic approach that can be fine-tuned based on the particular style. And I'll get into a little bit more of that later. First and foremost, I want to remind everybody that what we've done here and what we've been able to do here is combine the systemic formulas and the Alimentum formulas. And they become a really amazing combination, because the systemic formulas are what we consider very herbalomic in nature. That's just a term that we use to describe how herbs impact our health, along with other nutritional components, obviously. And we're really joining them symbiotically marrying them essentially with these Alimentum formulas. And what the Alimentum formulas are, for those of you that have been with us for a while, or even if you're new, we've had over the last 15 years a combination of what we call cellular formulas as well as these biome formulas. And biome formulas tend to center around organisms like our microbiome. And it's a term that you've probably heard now, not only with us, and we kind of launched our microbiome formulas back in would have been 2012. So we've really been ahead of the curve. However, we've spent a lot of time really refining and perfecting the research side of things. And so in the meantime, between that period of time, early, 2010, 11 till now, what we've been doing is really putting our foot forward on the research end of things, as well as doing more clinical work. In fact, we have some unique data to share with you guys over time regarding how, for example, our immunogenic influences immune cells directly, how our metabobiomic and the immune biomic influence the immune system directly as well. So we've really gathered some amazing data for you all. And this is clinical data. This isn't just laboratory data. These are driven by the need from the clinical standpoint. And that kind of reminds me that we ventured into this biome and genetic because we knew that the cells needed a particular, really a designer form of cellular nutrients. Furthermore, the microbiome needed the same thing. There is this really important aspect of our health that up until recently was being completely ignored. In fact, it wasn't even being ignored. Many of our protocols and procedures and our lifestyle was reversing what we were trying to do positively with patients. For example, any types of medicines or the types of diets that we'd venture to create a positive benefit in many ways were destroying essential microbiological and or cellular function. Therefore, we spent a lot of time looking deeply at how Alimentum products, meaning products that are designed around the cell and around the microbiome, could take us to the next level. And at any time during the protocoling phase, for you in your offices and even when you communicate with us, they can be joined. If we're working on a protocol that is designed around cognitive function, we're going to immediately look at our neurogenic, neurobiomic, and neurosuperfood, but we can add to that things like the detox process, so detoxigenic, as well as B-brain or number one. So there's a really beautiful way to combine these products into a much more powerful system than has ever been attempted before. And it's not new. I think, as Matt mentioned, we've spent many, many years. The cellulars have been around since mid 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in there. And we've accumulated a lot of data. So what we've done with the Genix, and I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to repeat myself. What we've done with the Genix is we've upgraded those formulas. They're still the same cellular centric formulas. And they focus on not only the cell itself, but even organelles inside the cell, like the mitochondria, the Golgi apparatus, the lysozymes, the nucleus, epigenetics, and so forth. We've essentially taken what we've learned over the last decade and improved those formulas. So they are the cellulars plus the new research that we've done in the meantime. And we've done a lot of DNA sequencing in the process, which is why we named them Genix, because we want them to be a very personalized journey for both the clinician and the patient. The eubiomic formulas, on the other hand, are focused entirely on the microbiota, both the microbiota as well as what we feed the microbiota. And those are all going to be called superfoods. And we've tried to make it simple by essentially naming these, anything with biomic in it is going to be related to the microbiota. Anything with the word superfood in it is going to be nutrition for the microbiome first, and then, of course, the human cells second. And then, of course, all the genic formulas are designed around cellular health, cellular improvement, chronic issues related to cellular dysfunction, whether that, again, be mitochondria or membranes, toxic relationships as well. The more toxins we've ingested or exposed to, we now have an improved protocol for detoxification. And then at any time, we can bolt onto that. We can take as an accessory or even as a primary, the original systemic formulas. Always, always keep in mind they can be used in conjunction or they can be used in isolation. We can use a reductionist approach originally, and then we can use a comprehensive approach as we navigate each and every protocol. These are the tools that we're now providing, and that's where my excitement comes from, because never before have I been able to bring everything to the table at once. And again, one of these days, I encourage you to come visit. We've built so much around this, the laboratory structures, the scientists, the clinicians. We've spent so much time to bring all of this to you to address what I've been watching over the last 3 decades, these chronic issues that keep plaguing us are a consequence of our environment, of our choices, of our medicines, and we're not reversing them if we don't have the right tools. And that's really why now we have systemic as well as Alimentum formulas, because together they're a much, much more powerful clinical tool than anything prior. And they integrate beautifully with any diet system. They integrate beautifully with lifestyle changes. There's just no area that we haven't covered when we brought these to bear on you guys to use in your clinics. The thing about the Genix and the Alimentum that makes them different, and how I want you guys to associate them slightly differently from the traditional systemic formulas. In fact, I want you to associate them differently than anything that's currently in the marketplace clinically, because they are like nothing else that's out there. And this is a powerful message, because when we've gone through the systems, gone through studying the microbiota and, of course, the cellular functionality, we've looked at all of the aspects that influence chronic illness, as well as rebuilding cells, rebuilding microbiota, and in the end, reversing issues. This is key to what we've done. And if you go to the Alimentum or Systemic website, and we're only selling off the Systemic website, we have an Alimentum there just because we're building it, and that's going to be forthcoming, exciting news. We're building a lot of these tools for you, but in terms of the concept behind this is it integrates with whether you use muscle testing, whether you use blood labs, whether you use the DNA testing that we've now bringing to the process here at Systemic Formulas and Alimentum. These are all tools that can be connected back to the Alimentum formulas. So we're not only designing them around their functionality, but we're also designing them around the tools that allow us to understand what's going on inside people, inside their cells, inside their microbiota. And these are all being brought to you throughout our entire process. So that being said, let's talk about protocoling, because it is a tough thing to do with all of this new knowledge. I want to try to simplify some of the things that encompass each of these groups of formulations, both the systemic and the Alimentum. So for example, let's talk about a parasite or a pathogen. We can look at fungi, bacterial, or parasitic, for example. And where we start there is, first and foremost, the strongest tool we have regarding any pathogenic system or pathogenic influence is we have our immune system. We also have our microbiota. So we always begin there. We need to start off with what we call the bioclears. The bioclears are essentially the killers in our arsenal. And you can partner them up with VRMs or with number 3 or number 4, if you so choose. But the bioclears were designed specifically around their clinical ability to target pathogenic organisms and across the board. And in fact, I encourage you to look at some of the ingredients. For example, we have monolaurin for fungi. We have caprylic acid. We have things like methane killing compounds, sorry. We have artemisinin, which targets parasites, and so on. And they're at doses that are relatively high. So as part of the protocol, we start with clear 1 and clear 2. We also then add to that, at the same time, you can add in Terra eubiomic and Terra superfood. The reason for that is because Terra biomic are spore-forming bacteria. They are not inhabitants. They actually can go through and compete very effectively against invading pathogens. They're very effective at that. And they're not limited by the BioClears as we're taking the BioClear and the Terra together. The Terra superfood then becomes the tool to help feed the organisms that we're ultimately going to regrow after the killing phase. Now, in terms of the killing phase here, the reduction phase of these organisms, we need to be cognizant of the fact that it's very, very concentrated. The BioClears are a concentrated formulation. Therefore, we oftentimes, for sensitive people, we just follow the dosing on the label, and that allows for things to happen naturally. And you monitor them as a clinician to make sure they're not feeling incredibly uncomfortable. They're not exhibiting symptoms that are making them feel worse as they're doing this phase. However, if we come across more aggressive situations, which we've actually had recently clinically, where we've had some organisms like parasites that are deeply, they've deeply embedded themselves in our bodies, we up that dosing. The dosing goes from the baseline to a higher dose. And again, they're monitored carefully. However, that increased dose creates a much more aggressive approach to something like a parasite or a fungal and oftentimes other bacterial organisms. So we change the dosing based on how aggressive this particular pathogen is. And we love to do that because we don't want to prolong the process. So in some cases, we do 10 days, we check in, we do another day, 10 days, we check in, we do a last 10 days, check in. For those people that have an aggressive situation, that first 10 days is twice the dose. Therefore, we've accomplished 2/3 of our protocol in the bottle in the first 10 days. And then we move on, we do the next 5, check in again, and we may have to repeat it. There hasn't been very many cases. It's rare that we have to go through more than 2 rounds of the clears. Now, the Terra can continue on beyond that. Once we have succeeded in eradicating the unwanted organisms, we then bring in the Terra, and then we follow that by the nutrient profiling. So we follow that by things like immunogenic, immunobiomic, and immunosuperfood, because now we want to rebuild the biome as well as the cellular immunity. We bring that in the second phase. And we actually have a protocol, without going into too much detail, that will take you out the rest of the way. We can take you out through neurobiomic, neurogenetic, and neurosuperfood. And you'll notice that we have these amazing names where we've named them so that you can, at least at a first glance, you can say, okay, these products are called neuro because they're designed around neurological. Immuno is designed around immunological. Skin, metabolic, etc. We've tried to keep things as simple as possible. And the genic is around the cell and the biomic is around the bugs. These are things that allow us to guide our patients through this without too much complexity. But the formulations themselves are extremely complex. And we are doing that for a reason, because we've studied what needs to happen to reverse these conditions. So clinically, they're very, very powerful beyond anything else that's out there. So that's what we're excited about. Now, next, if we want to tackle something like, let me just grab my list for you guys, that applies to the initial phase of our pathogen purge, for example. And then we can continue it out. And that's a really straightforward protocol. And again, we adjust dosing and we adjust subtle things when we're tackling specific pathogens. And we're certainly here to help you with those clinical specificities at any time. Do we want to deal with, let's say, skin? So if we take a pathogen or even a toxin that has been impacting our skin, whether it be eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, these all have an immunological basis. So oftentimes, if you have that patient that has skin rashes, lesions, otherwise we call them dermatitises, we start again with either a clearing, a purge, or a detoxification. So you can think of this as the starting point depends on where we think the source of these things are. If their source happens to be bacteriological or parasitic or viral, many people that went through and dealt with the SARS virus, they ended up with neurological as well as skin issues. So we know the source of that is going to be related to a pathogen. The converse to that is if we know that someone has been exposed either chronically or acutely to toxins, we start with what we call the detox process. And we have detoxigenic, bindgenic, we have mucosagenic, and each of these is where we begin the phase. As we work from step 1 to step 2, we then start introducing the dermas, the skin biomic, as well as collagen to start rebuilding not only the skin biome, but reinvigorating the immune system, which contributes to a skin rash. And these, by the way, are becoming incredibly prevalent in patients everywhere. We're seeing skin issues becoming very, very challenging across the board. And because of that, we've spent quite a bit of time and from phase 1 to phase 2, we need to start personalizing it for them. So depending on the type of skin rash, and certainly what I've asked doctors to do and clinicians send me a picture of it so that we can start to really understand the next phase of approach. If we start with the detox or if we start with a pathogen, the next level needs to be more personalized. And that's, again, why we're here. We're here to really help you personalize these each and every patient as much as possible. Some of the other questions that we can look at, a lot of the genetic information that we've been working with, we're going to be able to guide you through your genetic testing that will be available through us. So we have 2 geneticists that will be able to help you through it, as well as trainings that the reps have been doing. For example, Matt, they've been learning a lot about the genetic implications of nutrition. So that's pretty exciting as well. And we're going to bring that to you guys shortly, actually, in less than just a few days. So that's pretty exciting for you all. The prebiotics and probiotics. So I mentioned that the probiotics are all under the name eubiomic. And the prefix to that is going to dictate what they've been designed around clinically. So for example, neurobiomic is going to be around the neurological benefits of probiotics, excuse me. The skin biomic is around skin, immune, and so on. That should simplify it for many of you. But I want you to keep in mind that diversity in the microbiome is the main goal at the end of this. And there's going to be many more educational bits that help us navigate why our biome is so central to our health. Because as the name implies, the biome affects every body system. And there's 2 factors to getting you back to diversity. One is the organisms themselves. And the second aspect to that are what we call the superfoods or the prebiotics. If we are not feeding these organisms, we are not allowing them to recolonize, create the ecology that they live in that then offers us all of the benefits of these trillions of organisms. It doesn't take much. As a terrible example, but it happens all the time, when someone starts to choose a mono diet where they've really tried to reduce the number of things, which has its benefits in the short term. For example, you do an elimination diet. What you find is you get the benefit from a cellular standpoint or even a metabolic standpoint, because in that journey, you've cut out all of these ultra processed foods, which without question contributes to metabolic issues and microbiological issues, without a doubt. We know that for a fact. The data stands as it is. However, we only wanted to use this tool, these dietary interventions, as a starting point. Again, like anything else, we start with a process where we want to eliminate the problematic systems by eliminating these processed foods, having a simple diet, reduce inflammatory food and molecules making it in there. But then we need to slowly start rebuilding back to where we need to be. And it takes very little time to crash that system. For example, with your microbiota, when we go on a very specific diet, it only takes 3 days for those microbiota to start to adapt. Once they've adapted, you then slowly go through the other phases, building back the complexity. And it's that complexity where we bring in more superfoods, we bring in more genic formulas, we bring in more systemic herbal formulas, and each of those will start to rebuild not only the microbiota, but cellular processes as well as tissue level health, whether it be the liver, the heart, the brain, and so on. So it really is a fun little journey to protocol from, starting with a clean slate, getting a lot of patients down to a basic level, both dietary and supplementary, but then build them back through the journey. And then they have to maintain it. And there is a maintenance factor that we build in to these protocols that as you guys learn from us and as we keep educating you, you'll see that this maintenance factor is critical, because if someone stops doing any one of these arms of help, if they start to digress in their diet, it will revert within 3 days back to an unhealthy microbiota is the first thing to go, and then your cells will follow suit later. So this is really powerful information and tools that we can bring to you and help you navigate all this. Now, as another look at information and protocoling, we have what we call unique organisms and unique molecules in our Alimentum line. Now, the systemic line has what we call a vast knowledge of ethnobotanical medicine built into it, because a lot of those formulas were designed around more ancient ethnobotanical knowledge, which is brilliant. We love that. I mean, that's what got me into this world over 30 years ago. It's absolutely amazing, which is why we are excited about the systemic formulas. But all of the information we've been able to glean from what's happening to us and our patients in our society right now in industrialized countries, the Alimentum formulas contain what I consider more unique and proprietary ingredients. And now, we don't use the term proprietary to hide ingredients or to not allow you to ask where and why and how we got them. For example, our vitamins are all organic. And if you look at what we used to call spectra is now becoming vitagenic, these are not only organic, they're all plant-based vitamins. They are literally coming from their natural source. They've not been refined. They've not been purified. They are coming from the plants that produce high levels of vitamins. And that entire formulation is organic and plant-based, because there are certain plants that make a lot of these really amazing vitamins. These are the kinds of choices we've made over the last decade. The other vitamins, what we call biologically available vitamins in our methylgenic, in our cellgenic, in our energenic, these have been modified by organisms to become more bioavailable. For example, methyl tetrahydrofolate as opposed to folic acid. We're offering these much more bioactive and bioavailable vitamins, minerals, plant matrices, and so on. That's part of the upgrades that we're doing, and we're doing upgrades both from a clinical standpoint, which is dosing, as well as an ingredient standpoint, as people have understood what's happening in the mitochondria better, what's happening on the cell membranes more selectively and efficiently. This is the research that we've been contributing